at the end of the talk. Again, Dr. Mario Martinez speaks in Houston at a KPFT event on Tuesday, November 11th. This is 90.1 KPFT, Houston.
Good morning. This is Open Journal, KPFT's experiment in community-inspired radio. Every weekday at 8 a.m., KPFT brings you a look at the people and ideas that make the Gulf Coast great. Right after Jim Hightower's Common Sense commentary, we welcome guests sharing their knowledge, topics of interest here and globally, and the signature arts and culture that have always been a part of 90.1 KPFT. We welcome your participation throughout the program on social media. Find us on Twitter at KPFT and on Facebook at KPFT Houston. Thanks for listening and stay tuned.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell recently proclaimed the best interests of the country would be achieved by pulling out Obamacare, root and branch. Like Captain Ahab's suicidal obsession with Moby Dick, the great white whale in Melville's classic novel, GOP lawmakers like McConnell are so obsessed with killing America's new health care law that they can't say hello without adding repeal Obamacare. But do they actually mean it? Not in Mitch's case. You see, his state's healthcare exchange, called Kentucky Connect, was set up and funded through the Obamacare law, and it is both very successful and popular. About 500,000 Kentuckians are now getting health coverage through the program, most of it paid for by the law's expansion of Medicaid. So McConnell, who's now in a tight re-election race, is trying to pull off a magical bit of political trickery. He will uproot Obamacare, he promises voters, yet, abracadabra, their treasured Kentucky Connect program will still flower. Of course, magicians don't perform magic. They perform illusions. McConnell's trick amounts to nothing but a slick play on words. He's telling voters that since Kentucky Connect is a, quote, state exchange, it can operate separately from that big bad federal program. The senator hopes his constituents will be so dazzled by this rhetorical flourish that they'll suspend all rational thought, ignore the laws of nature, and send the old trickster back to Washington to yank Obamacare out of the ground. Never mind that the national program, rooted in Medicaid, is what pumps the essential funding into Kentucky's state exchange. Kill one, you kill the other. This is Jim Hightower saying Mitch would make a lousy gardener. But he's even lousier at being an example of political integrity. Even if he wins, he's already proven himself a loser.
To get more of Jim Hightower's populist take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to, visit www.hightowerlowdown.org.
Well, good morning. It's Wednesday, November the 5th, and you are listening to Open Journal right here on 90.1 FM KPFT. I'm Marlo Blue.
And I'm Duane Bradley. On today's program, elections nationwide saw sweeping wins for the Republicans campaigning against the policies of President Barack Obama, as you are well aware. Kingwood-based analyst and blogger Egberto Willies, as well as not just that, but also a programmer here at KPFT on Monday evenings for Politics Done Right at 9 p.m. Well, he's here with us to look at the results, both statewide, locally, and beyond the fringe.
Painting it red. It's pretty much the way it went all day, isn't it? You know, we want to hear from you and what you think, and we have lots of different ways that you can do it. Of course, via social media. Tell us at KPFT on Twitter and KPFT Houston on Facebook.
All right, so who's in mourning this morning?
My legs have restless legs syndrome, and they don't know where to go.
Okay. Well, speaking of painting it red, I guess really the only good red that I'm wanting to talk about are the Houston Rockets.
They're on a streak, right?
Yes,
5-0.
I mean, they're one of the undefeated teams in the NBA. So there is something red to be proud of this morning.
Very much so. Beat the Miami Heat last night, which was nice to see.
I'm all about it. And I know our program director is, I think he's a season ticket holder. He like sideline seats and all that.
Or you think he'd play enough basketball right here with KPFT and all those donations that we get or not get?
All right. So I'm a little depressed this morning, and I don't know what to do about it. So, any suggestions?
Really?
Can I get some therapy? Can I get a witness? Can I get some help?
I've had a lot of good friends saying that they are thinking about moving away from Texas again, but where do you go? I mean, what do you do?
I think we'll be discussing that at length with our friend Egberto in the rest of this hour, but I think in retrospect, perhaps we can focus on the lowest levels and begin to work from the very bottom, because we seem to have bottomed out, and we've got to do something. I've been a proponent of the fact that the Red Party and the Blue Party are really the two parties of the one party, which is the corporate party. And there's a semi-middle-of-the-road, slightly liberal wing of that party. And then there's this rabid red, Rush-flavored wing on the other side. But they're both wings of the same party. And so maybe we can have a discussion about practical ways for those other parties, the independent parties, the green parties, the other red parties like the socialist parties and such, to maybe have some sort of semblance of reality. What's it going to take? I mean, are we going to have an entire national meltdown before the American populace at large realizes that these two parties have gamed the system, and it's not for our personal best interests, that we have created a system, or they have rigged the system to create a country that says one thing on paper, that we are this representative democratic republic, and yet we're not. We are now bought and sold. We're packaged, we're commodified, and we are in lockstep, and we've got people voting against their own best interests.
And I hope that, of course, Egberto is going to go into that a lot more, too, when he comes in on the next part of the hour. I'm thrilled to have Egberto here because, having a perspective like that is just a great way to get through this day.
Well, we're looking forward to officially bringing him into the room here in a little while. So, I don't know. I'm floored. I'm disappointed. I don't know if, as I got up yesterday and came down here to Montrose from my little hacienda in the Heights, I saw the remnants of this Mexican hurricane. And so there was this dark cloud wall across the horizon. And not only symbolically, but I think in a very real way, people saw a sprinkle on their windshield, and maybe some people said, you know what, it's not worth the hassle. And I tend to believe that the folks who are going to not be as motivated if the weather and authorities say, hey, you got some sprinkles there, are largely going to be folks who would have voted for the blue party in this case. I don't know. We'll find out from our wizard, not weather wizard, but our political analysis.
Oh, we will
here.
definitely be talking to Egberto about that. From what I understand, there was a lot more early voting this time, at least in Harris County, than there was actually that showed up at the polls. Well,
and we've heard a lot nationally about the provisional ballot, which is basically the non-ballot ballot, and Pokey Anderson, who used to host a program and worked on the KPFT News and is no longer a resident of this state. She's moved to a greener place. Pokey, many years ago, did investigative pieces for the KPFT News on the electronic voting system, the e-ballot, and so I'm scrolling through, wheeling and dealing through my very, very lengthy ballot with all of these judges, And then at the end, I hit the little boop, the American flag waves. I turn around and look for my I voted sticker that I didn't get. And and you have to have faith in the system that I've got no proof. I've got this little number that I walked to that little booth with. But I've got nothing walking out of there. I've got no receipt. I get better proof when I go to HEB and I walk out, and at least I've got the ticket in my hand saying this is what I bought.
Yeah.
I don't even have that as in terms of what that little screen said that I was saying, whether it really did what I thought it was going to do, and whether that's real or not. I'm not completely cynical. I'm not completely suspicious, but I am certainly slightly so.
Well, with good reason. There was a lot of finagling, shall we say, and we will, of course, get into more of that with Egberto.
Okay, and maybe you can share a personal anecdote on that topic.
May I? I had problems yesterday with and my question is the sanctity of the ballot box. How can it be sanctified if the way that it happens, I had my correct ID. I had all of the information that I needed with the polls. I saw that I was
recently
registered.
Crossed the border?
I have not. I have not. Okay. I mean, you could say I had brain damage, but you can't necessarily say that I have moved anywhere in the last couple of years. In fact, I've been at the same residence now for 15 years. And so it was a great surprise to me when I presented my identification. I started to sign the polls, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to verify your address. We've been told that you have to verify your address and your vote will go into the provisional file. And of course, we want your vote to be counted," which just irritated me more than anything else. But that did mean that my vote went into a provisional file because I had to fill out an affidavit saying where I lived. Now, they know not only my voter number, okay, it's linked. They had to verify my address again, and now they know who I voted for. Right?
Well, yeah, and it went into that square file that then ends up in a round file after it's been...
Pretty big old round file.
Data-based, sure. Recycling.
Thanks, Harris County.
Well, sad news for most of you listening to the KPFT Open Journal this morning on this moist Wednesday here on the 5th of November.
Yeah. And congratulations to our friends who did at least try. Please don't let it discourage you from continuing to try and change your system. Well, it's time to let you know about a few goings-on right here in Houston, Texas.
Okay, well, today at 5 o'clock at the River Oaks Bookstore, which is 3270 Westheimer, there'll be a reading by Carmen Martinez and Laura Rosamond, whose book, Another Day with Her, Lost in a Diagnosis, focuses on bipolar disorder, and it's a free event. For more information, you can check riveroaksbookstore.com. The authors share Bell's journey, Latrice Bell's journey, and discuss efforts to confront the stark realities of the destructive force that affected those closest to Bell, Latrice Bell's battle with bipolar disorder, and, of course, Latrice committed suicide.
It's a free event. That's the good news.
Again, and you can check that. It's 5 o'clock today, River Oaks Bookstore. More information available at riveroaksbookstore.com.
And also, with so much in the news about the Ukraine and Russia, well, today at the Russian Cultural Center, and that's at 2337 Bissonnette, Illustrations of War and Peace by Igor Karash takes on Leo Tolstoy's most famous work from a new perspective. Azerbaijan-born Karash created the illustrations for an upcoming reprint of the novel War and Peace. And more about this free exhibition, open until November the 29th, you can always visit rtx.org. That's OURTX.org.
All right. Hey, tonight is also the 7th annual Archbishop Joseph Fiorenza lecture. This is a free lecture at the University of St. Thomas in the Cullen Hall, right here in the Montrose, off of Montrose and West Alabama. on the campus in the Cullen Hall. Tonight at 7, there's a reception, a lecture at 7:30. It is called Sharing the Good News Joyfully, from Pope John the 23rd to Pope Francis. It's delivered by the founder and director of the Center for Faith and Culture, Father Don Nesty. That is tonight at 7, lecture at 7:30. It's open, free to the public, University of St. Thomas.
That should be fascinating. We've had so much going on in the papal world that a nice perspective like that should be great.
A little bit of bright news.
Yeah, we need it. Oh, but speaking of bright news, of course, Dr. Mario Martinez is going to visit Houston, and we are happy about that. There's going to be that KPFT event next Tuesday, November the 11th at 7 p.m. Have you got your tickets? I think there are a couple left. You can
They're
still
going
contact
fast,
Robin,
actually.
right?
The room is more than half full.
That's just wonderful. But it is going to be next Tuesday, November 11th at 7 p.m. at St. Paul's United Methodist Church. That's 5501 Main Street. Dr. Martinez, you've been hearing all about it. He teaches his theory and practice of biocognitive science to the general public and has a recently published book, The Mind-Body Code, which will be available at the event. And you can always visit us here at kpft.org for tickets and more details.
And, of course, Dr. Martinez will be doing a weekend workshop following that next Tuesday. He'll be on the University of St. Thomas campus for a 2-day workshop. You can check that out and link to that through KPFT as well. And the KPFT House Committee meets here at 419 Lovett Boulevard Saturday morning at 9 to do all the maintenance you would expect to need to be done on a 100-year-old house that happens to be a 24/7 radio station.
We can always tell when you've been here, too.
I provide donuts and kolaches and coffee every Saturday morning at 9 for this, one Saturday a month is when we do this work. So if you missed any of these announcements, you can find them at kpft.org. And you can also send us information if you'd like it to be considered for listing. Open Journal at kpft.org.
Oh, yeah, please do. Please send in your information. Send in all sorts of stuff. We want to hear from you. This is, of course, KPFT Community Radio. And, well, you know, while elections are dominating headlines everywhere, let's take a brief look at a few of the other stories making waves online.
Okay. Well, 143 documentary films declared eligible for this year's Academy Awards consideration have now been sent out to the over 400 voters who will select the winner. Citizen Coke, well known in these parts, which profiles the rise in political power wielded by the brothers Koch, leads the list of contenders. Other documentaries noted by the Academy include Dancing in Jaffa, profiling the renowned ballroom dancer Pierre Delaine's teaching of Jewish and Palestinian Israelis to dance and compete together, and Private Violence, which is a look at domestic violence through the eyes of 2 survivors.
That's just a phenomenal amount of films to actually look through.
Amazing. I'd like to be one of the 400 voters because I'd love them to send me 143 documentaries.
Well, you know, the way the Grammys do it, you have to pay for those. If you're
well,
voting for the Grammys,
maybe I don't want
you can easily become a Grammy voter. You can very easily add in there, but you do have to pay for the different, which is think about what you wish for, right? Well, social media in Latin America is still talking about the capture of the Mexican mayor and his wife, dubbed the First Lady of Murder, who are suspected of ordering and killing the 43 students that we have been talking so much about. Jose Luis Abarca was arrested early Monday morning along with his wife, Maria de los Angeles Pineda, who authorities suggest may have directed police to abduct the missing students. Stay tuned to Open Journal in the coming weeks for an analysis of this story and more in Mexican politics. That's a ongoing thing.
Unbelievable what's happening down there.
Yeah.
Well, on a lighter note, the departure of pop superstar Taylor Swift from the streaming service Spotify has shined a light on the royalties that artists receive from streaming services. And while Spotify still has failed to turn a profit, artists have long complained that they're paid just a tiny fraction of a cent for plays of their work. And for independent artists, the financials are far dimmer, as many of the artists spun on KPFT have shared with me over the years. This is an ongoing story, of course.
Boy, it really is. And when they say fraction of a cent, they mean a fraction of a cent. 10,000 plays, and you get 10 cents, if you're lucky. Hey, if you missed any of these stories, again, you can find links on our website, kpft.org. All you have to do is check today's Open Journal on the home page, and we certainly wish you would. The time is now 8:20. You are listening to KPFT's Open Journal right here on 90.1 FM.
Well, good morning. It's 72 degrees and falling here at KPFT Studios as we celebrate Guy Fawkes Day. Looking at the weather, after sporadic overnight rain, the National Weather Service is still calling for a 60% chance of wetness today. The dew point stands at 68%. The rain and the cold front has helped clean our sins from the air, so we're presently breathing relatively low levels of particulates and ozone. Elm and ragweed pollen are also reading very low. We're seeing heavier than usual traffic out there with 8 reported accidents on our roadways. Watch out for a heavy truck accident at Beltway 8 eastbound at Ella. The ride on 45 from Dixie Farm Road to downtown is averaging 48 minutes despite speeds in the 20s and 30s from the Beltway all the way in. And now back to more of the new Open Journal.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. You know, every morning now on Open Journal, as part of this new forum, KPFT is featuring a song of the day, profiling music from Houston's great performers from around this Upper Texas Gulf Coast Petro Metro region. Today's song of the day is by a local act called Yellow Echo.
Formed in 2012, Yellow Echo. Well, it's a trio that lists influences like, as diverse as Radiohead, The Police, and Stevie Wonder.
Like all of those.
Among its inspirations. So you're going to like this. Of our highlight song today, the Houston Press said it merges spaghetti western guitar riffs, punk rock, soul, and hip-hop. Yellow Echo is reportedly working on an upcoming release, which we can't wait for, and now performing around the region.
Yellow Echo's track Irregular Love is today's song of the day.
I make my heart sad.
That is Irregular Love by Houston band Yellow Echo, KPFT's Song of the Day. And you can find a link to Yellow Echo's music at our website, kpft.org.
I like this kpft.org thing. Sending a lot of people there, and it's all good. If you have a suggestion for KPFT's Song of the Day on Open Journal, just let us know through Twitter or Facebook, or email us if you're old school, openjournal@kpft.org.
Absolutely. And hashtag KPFT. Time is now 4:26. You are listening to KPFT Open Journal.
You're locked into the afternoon news.
I am, aren't I?
Yeah.
I need to stop that.
It's 8:27 a.m. Marlo, of course, regularly anchoring the KPFT local news during the 4:26 hour in the afternoons. And you'll probably hear her say that this afternoon. So, hey, Texas was among dozens of states making major decisions last evening and over the course of Tuesday. Governor's mansion, referenda worth millions among the different items hanging in the balance. Greg Abbott sailing to an easy victory here, as many other Republicans as well. Looking at last night's results and their impact with us is political analyst Egberto Willies. He's author, blogger, man about town, host of the radio program right here on KPFT Politics Done Right, Monday evenings, 9 p.m., and he also comes and hangs out sometimes on the Think Wing radio show with Mike Honig, which is on tonight at 10 after our Tech Bites Geek Squad clears the room.
And in addition, of course, Willies is a business owner, really and truly, software developer, and mechanical engineer. He is based in Kingwood, Texas. Welcome.
Thank you. How you guys doing this morning?
Hey, nice. So how do you like the livable forest?
It's livable. It's a forest. It's red.
It's red. Oh.
Dripping in red today, right?
I thought it was very green and oxygenated. I thought the high level of oxygen would cause for better thinking.
You see, that's the reason I love KPFT. I can come over here and decompress.
Well, welcome to the morning of KPFT. You're more of an evening dude on the airwaves of KPFT. So let's start with the top, at least in terms of Texas politics. There was a lot of great energy built up over the last couple of years now around an actual Democratic challenge to the governor's mansion, the Rick Perry house out there in Austin. It's been 20 years since George W. knocked Ann Richards out of the house, and, well, pretty much George and Rick have lived there ever since, and now Greg's going to roll into the governor's mansion. So what can we take from this? I mean, I'm saying everybody except the folks who voted for him, which I guess is a majority of the people, sadly. What does this represent?
I think Lewis Powell is probably rolling in his grave and smiling and laughing. And he's saying to himself, it works, it works, it works. I tell you, I think that we didn't get our messaging across, and I think we were outwit. I think this was coming. We didn't have a clue. I'm going to say something. I really thought that we were going to, if not win, come closer to winning, because both with Battleground Texas out there getting all the people engaged, I thought that with the local groups getting people engaged, we really had what it took. But evidently, the message wasn't there. And I also think that we may have had I don't want to say a flawed candidate, because I think Wenda Davis, the embodiment of Wenda Davis was great. I think she represented everything that we needed to see, both for women and for the people at large. But I think that, and we were speaking about this earlier, Marlo, I actually thought that she didn't, she became a conservative light as opposed to the activists that would have brought out the people that feel so strained in Texas. I mean, with over 1 million Texans not having health care, for them not to have been out there voting for this being a right-to-work state where unions have really little power, it is amazing that we are able to continue voting for this business mantra that cares nothing about the average person, low wages.
Well, why do so many Democrats want to be Republicans?
I tell you what, this, and I hope the audience take this in the spirit that I'm trying to say it, because Republicans give that mantra of not being the other. In other words, they when you're a Republican, they try to make it seem as if this is a bastion of success, and the Democrats are there to help those who need help. And who thinks of themselves as wanting to be that person who's looking for help? I mean, it's not really accurate, right? 98% of Americans really need some sort of, I mean, that's the definition of a society. A society is by definition us coming together to do what we can't individually do, or what we can't do by ourselves. And they give this individualistic mantra that's really not there. It's individualistic until they need support of the state, but they give this individualistic mantra, and it has an appeal. I think we have to undercut that appeal, and I think that is something that Democrats and the left at large have done thus far.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, how was Greg Abbott able to amass the kind of support that he did in this campaign?
Money, right?
Yeah.
And messaging. I mean, I tell you a quick little story. I went out to Conroe with my cameras. I like to follow these politicians, and I went out and I watched the way he dealt with his audience, and he empowered his audience with how, first of all, he made his audience feel like the world was against them, that they had to come out there and vote. And he also made them feel, I don't know if you listened to our governor last night, Texas is the best, we're the best, and that's why they're all after us. So he gave that type of a speech that really empowered these people feel empowered to go out there and do something. That same day I ran to TSU where Wendell Davis, by the way, out there, he got a whole lot of softball questions from the media. So the media is another aspect of this whole win. But then I went out to TSU this very same day to watch Wendell Davis encourage folk to vote. And, she did a great job in encouraging people, but she didn't make it look like an existential problem here in Texas that you vote for her. You don't vote for her. All the things that you need as Texans will not be there. The two messages were quite different. He made it that they had to do it. She made it that they should do it.
Well, does that mean that the politics of fear are now systemic, and that's the way you're going to have to play this game if you want to win? You have to scare motivation instead of inspire motivation?
I think so. I mean, I hate to say that, but if one side is playing fear, I mean, the biggest way to somebody to have somebody do something is to put fear in their hearts, right? I mean, if you feel like your existence is at stake, then whoever is there to solve that, you're going to go for it, irrespective. I mean, we were talking earlier about how people voted. If we look at how for the states that had minimum wage, a progressive idea, marijuana, a progressive idea, they voted for those. They voted for those ideas, and at the same time, they voted for a candidate that specifically, categorically came out against those two ideas.
Yeah. What's the schizophrenia there? I know you're not a psychologist, but
I wouldn't know what the schizophrenia is. I just know that it works. You know, the difference between an engineer and a scientist, right? The scientist really knows how things actually got done. The engineer say, okay, I'll learn this from you and I'll implement what I've just learned from you. All I know is what happened.
But I have to say that the initial fear campaigns that were coming out of Wendy Davis, at least specifically in our market, did not work for me.
I don't, the kind of fear that she used initially, I don't think is the kind of fear that the Republicans use. They use, there is a book called The Political Brain by Drew Weston, and it talks about how to get to people's heart. In other words, you equate whatever you're talking about with instances in their lives that they can understand.
Right.
And that is how, sometimes I wonder if the Republicans read that book, because that is how they implement their policies. They look at, right now we live on the Texas border. The Texas border is controlled by the federal government, not a state government. Yet Dan Patrick's biggest claim to fame to win was, I will secure the border.
Mm-hmm. I'm heading down there with my rifle right now. I'm calling out the Montrose Beer and Gun Club to go with me.
Amazing.
Well, so it's about framing then.
Yes.
And obviously Wendy and the Democrats in general, not just in Texas, but across the nation, did a very poor job of that. You mentioned Drew Weston's political brain.
Right.
Another thing we could maybe mention in that vein is George Lakoff.
What the heck, Kansas?
Yeah, and I mean, he wrote a very small one. I like small books because
Me too.
So one of his was Don't Think of an Elephant. So even just in the title, what did you just think of? You thought of the elephant, and it's just the way the human brain works. And there are psychological framing mechanisms that are put into play, and fear is a big one. You can certainly motivate people through ginning up their fear, and it seems like rather than speak to the issues that are really down on the street level, that are important to the pocketbook, to the growing up of the family, to bread and butter issues that are important to mom and pop and to the kids. We're being spun off into these side stories about, ISIS is smuggling folks across this porous border that Dan's going to go and stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get storyboarded into these cartoons instead of talking about the real issues.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I kind of want to pick up on, and you mentioned it real early. That for me was like that light that went off when you spoke about the parties. How the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are currently really the corporate party with two fringes. Right, and that is a perfect. I think that was a perfect illustration of where we're at. I think it's a perfect illustration. I think Democrats are very smart, but I think what they have to do to actually move forward, go against that corporatist base, and that is why they don't do it. Otherwise, I think even a Wendy Davis could have went full-fledged populist and won in Texas. But being full-fledged populist would also mean going against a whole lot of our systems,
Right.
And going against our systems or going against our corporatocracy, So it is amazing to me that when you said that, my first thought was, we have to really do it. Think about how the Tea Party got the Republican Party moved this way. We need a party to bring these other left parties this way so that we can actually effect the kind of change that we're really looking for.
So any practical methodology, any there are groups like Move to Amend that are trying to,
sure. But I tell you what, I think a party like the Green Party, and the S word shouldn't be said, but those different parties should actually get into coalition and infiltrate one of the parties, and we know which party that should be, that needs to be infiltrated. And just as the Tea Party did. And I think if that were to occur, we would then have an even fight where we can actually effect change. But, right now we have all these little fringes on the left and the Tea Party that has consolidated the right. And, yesterday on MSNBC, I heard them say, they put the Tea Party to the side and now the Republicans are running. And I'm like, are you crazy? They didn't put the Tea Party to the side. The Republican Party became the Tea Party.
Absolutely.
So they're still there.
In a big way, with lots of money, and now they're going to be taking over all of the committee chairs. We're going to have James Inhofe of Oklahoma in charge of the Environmental Protection Agency. What kind of trouble did we just buy into last night?
Yeah, let's take it new. What's up?
America doesn't know what they've done. Okay, by having right now, President Obama becomes a backstop, right? But I don't feel very secure as far as the president being the backstop, because we have President Clinton as an example when this occurred to him. Mm-hmm. And when that occurred to him, we got this stuff called Glass-Steagall got repealed. And then everybody look at Bush and says, oh, Bush caused the crash of the economy in 2008. Well, guess what? It began with the killing of Glass-Steagall, which quite wasn't a Bush thing. It was his party thing that helped Monica Lewinsky force the president to make all kind of concessions. But when everybody says, well, at least we still have the veto pen, I don't know how effective that's going to be all through as people really believe, because I think, yes, there's going to be gridlock, but I think those of us that are on the left have a lot to be fearful for, and I hope that is going to give us the impetus to go out there and really get together and start working hard to cripple things.
Well, and that speaks to a very important issue, which is the fact that we're in this room, on this radio station, having this conversation right now. There is not, and I'm not tuned into the other 50 stations, but I doubt that there's a conversation anywhere approaching this, anywhere within this part of our country. So it makes to me, and not just because I work here, because I have been a member and supporter of KPFT for many, many years, more than the few that I've actually derived my living from it, in particular as general manager here over the last dozen years. But I've supported KPFT for 40 of its 45 years of existence, and I think now more than ever, having this bastion of discussion and free-flowing communication where all of these little fragments of progressive political thought and activism actually have a place where they can rally themselves and speak to themselves and maybe coalesce some solutions to a lot of quite obvious now problems that are, big LED, bright, burning themselves into your brain kind of signs. Well, that's, to me, making more important than ever that people should support KPFT. And I'm not wanting to turn this into a post-Fund Drive pledge pitch, though it's maybe sounding like I'm going there. But it's important. And I think that KPFT's existence serves as a rallying cry, as a rallying space, because otherwise we're not going to have much of a platform to have these types of conversations, which I think are necessary if we're going to move forward in any kind of progressive way.
I agree with you. Whether you agree or disagree, you need a platform. You need someplace where people can safely talk about these issues, and that certainly is KPFT.
Absolutely. All right. Well, look, we're needing to check in with Patrick, I think, and see what's happening out there atmospherically, and also traffic-wise.
Yeah.
I'll predict that it's still moist, and roads are slick.
It's very wet.
And there's some probably slow-moving people on most of the major arteries around town. But let's get some particulars.
And then we'll be right back with Egberto again.
Well, actually, turning to traffic, things are clearing up a little bit from the rush, with the exceptions of 290 and 45 Gulf Freeway. 290 inbound at 1960, though, watch out for that heavy truck accident. Major accidents are also to be found at West Gray and McDuffie, and also Ella and 26th. As for weather, it's a touch cool, as this cold front gives us a small taste of the cold of space. The sun will make a faltering attempt to warm us today until sunset at 5:31 p.m., after which temps will fall to 61 degrees overnight. The record low for today was 31 degrees, set in 1991, and the record high was 88, which was reached way back in 1963. And now back to the new Open Journal.
Darn that faltering sun.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Patrick.
You're tuned to the new Open Journal on KPFT. It's a quarter before 9 in the morning. I'm Duane Bradley.
And I'm Marlo Blue, and we are here with the fabulous and the wonderful Egberto Willies. We are so glad to have you here.
It's great having you here today, yes.
Yeah, you know, he is, of course, a host, a blogger, an author, and as we've been talking to him, of course, don't forget to check out his book, Politics Done Right, and you can always hear him here on Monday nights at 9 p.m. on KPFT 90.1.
And as I mentioned, he'll be hanging tonight with
the Think Wing,
Mike Honey. 10 o'clock tonight, where I'm sure they'll get into maybe a little bit more expansive analysis of some of what's happened. Maybe, I don't know, it might get loud.
How did Harris County do for Wendy Davis and for Greg Abbott? Do you have any numbers?
It was a wipe out. Now, it wasn't too bad, right? Because I think she got 45% in Harris County. But the big problem with Harris County is that we lost the county. And as we lost the county, we lost judges, we lost the whole line. There were great people running. I met a whole lot of these guys running for judgeships. And I mean, even the night before, I was out there at HCDP watching all these judges in lines making telephone calls and calling people, you know, trying to get them to come out to vote.
Is that a good tactic anymore? I mean, with people having cell phones, no longer having landlines, are they actually reaching undecided voters?
Well, you know what is interesting? I guess the proof is in the pudding, right? And evidently the pudding wasn't there. You know, I mean, I hate to put it that way because, I mean, if you take a look at how, let's say, Battleground, Texas, and all these folks were bragging, and I don't say that negatively, but they were out there saying we've knocked 1 million doors, we've called X amount of folks and all that sort of thing, and to be beaten, not just beaten, but to be beaten badly. Okay, it was a wipeout, and it wasn't only Texas. Granted, it was throughout the country, but it just means that whatever tactic was used, you know, I mean. It's nothing. I don't think we're saying anything bad about Battleground or any of these guys. It's just that whatever it is that they did didn't work, which means as opposed to attempting to do the same thing again, we probably have to do something differently the next time. Now, I tell you one thing that I wanted to bring up real quickly, and that is, I don't think the left plays a very good game. You know how when you're going to war, you have these people that are filling out the carpet bombing, right?
Right.
Well, the GOP has been carpet bombing for 2 years. I get emails right through the thing, you know, with stories, with false stories and all of that make people believe what's going on that isn't going on. We don't do things like that. We don't keep our base enlightened with what's going on or giving them counteractions to the other side throughout the year. We just come to them 3 months before the election and think that it's going to happen.
It's so very different from the way they do it, especially in England. And, you know, they seem to do okay. So this is sort of surprising. Hey, Egberto, we've got a question from one of our listeners who's called in, and it's specifically about the voter ID issues. Do you think that made a difference?
It probably made a difference on the margins. I doubt that it really changed the flavor of the election because if you take a look at other states as well, those that implemented voter ID and those that didn't, I mean, the slaughter was throughout the states. So, I mean, and the president did say one thing that I think we should take heed. He said, forget about voter ID and all these things. If all the people who have ID were to vote, voter ID wouldn't matter all that much.
Yeah.
You know.
And another question coming from one of our KPFT OJ listeners is about dark money.
Oh, yeah. It's just that. Dark money. We won't know about that money until after the election, which is, you know, a lot of the monies were given right before the election. If you take a look at something like what McConnell did in Kentucky,
Yeah.
he sent out a very misleading mailer right before the election. Who actually paid for that? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there are a whole lot of
Want to guess?
Yeah, dark money.
Getting darker too, I will say.
Possibly a coke project, possibly a coal project.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Most likely.
Well, what do you think do you have any ideas of what we're going to be seeing now? I mean, Wendy Davis was all about education. She was all about forefronts. Will there be in this next legislative session more defunding of education? I mean, they were careful at the 83rd level not to do anything. What about this 84th session coming up?
No, I don't think they're going to take any more money out. Mike Collier already told the truth, right? Mike Collier was running for Texas State Comptroller, and he found out that we really are awashed in money. Mm-hmm. Okay, we are awashed in money. So if they were to do that, I think the editors would get on their cases for trying to cut more of the budget, etc. But what concerns me more is how they're intending to fund things. They're trying to drive taxes off of property taxes and place it onto sales taxes, which means they're trying to go from a from a progressive type tax system to a regressive type system, which what that means is the average person that's struggling trying to send their kids to school will pay a bit more for that pencil, will pay a bit more for these things to pay for the schools, while the guy who owns a whole lot of property, by the way, that our military must protect by keeping our country safe and all of that, they don't bear that proportional burden on what has to be done. So it's I think they're smart. Okay, I really think the Republicans are smart. They'll not do anything that's going to rile up their base too badly, but at the same time, they will always be that low tax type thing and trying to help those who got them there.
All right, so I'm trying to grasp for a silver lining in this very cloudy morning. And I know this is a stretch. But could I derive some small solace from an expectation that with Dan Patrick winning the lieutenant governorship that he won't be on the radio quite so much?
I think
there you go, worrying about airtime again, Duane Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? For those people who fear Dan Patrick, I think he's going to run that place like a smooth operator. I don't think. I mean, notice how he ran his campaign. You didn't hear from him. He didn't say anything explosive. I think he's going to keep that. For the most part, he's going to try to be like that. He's going to try to look like a statesman, and he'll probably stay off with radio.
Well, that at least is
small
good
blessing.
News.
Yeah,
we're happy about that.
I told you I was stretching there.
I want to know what you think about another Bush coming into the world of public office.
Is it going to be like Papa Bush, the grandfather? Is it going to be like the one who let himself be led? I mean, look, I may get in trouble for this, but I wasn't the kind of guy that really had a whole lot of hating on the Bush or anything like that. I don't think Daddy Bush, not GW, but the father, Poppy.
Yeah.
I don't think Poppy was that all that bad of a person. But I mean, I don't know what happened to George. Now, if the little one becomes like that, then it'll be a problem. So I don't know, but I think he's going to be talking, and he's going to be serious in Texas politics for some time to come.
What's next?
I tell you what, I'm positive. I'm a positive guy, okay?
Please infect us.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Let me tell you, we lost this one. This gives us an opportunity to get together and rile up our base and really, go on the counterattack. I am not... we're going to have a meeting in town later on. I'm going to be all positive and saying, I am not going to sit down there and sulk. I sulked all of last night. I dreamt about this morning as I was waking up, and I came in here depressed, and I said to myself, you know what? Good. That's over now. Now we're moving forward. So as a progressive, I'm ready to get off get up and start the activism again. And this time, I think it gives us opportunity to say, now let's really go leftwards. Let's really get activists. Let's really go out there and and talk to people's heart instead of trying to be Republican light or anything like that. Let's go full-fledged lefty.
Egberto, thank you so much. We needed a little positive light today. That's
Indeed.
Absolutely true.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, we've been speaking with blogger, author, radio show host, and political activist Egberto Willies. Where can they catch your blog?
Yes, please go to egbertowillies.com. That's EGBERTOWILLIES.com.
Thank you so much. Well, on that note, I guess we conclude this morning's edition of Open Journal. I'm Marlo Blue.
I'm Duane Bradley.
And a very special thanks to Egberto Willies for stopping in. We're going to continue this conversation on social media. We're at KPFT on Twitter and KPFT Houston on Facebook. We hope to schedule our original guest, Anthony Graves, on a future program. Get well soon. We heard he had a little bump to the head and was in the ER yesterday.
Okay, yes, indeed. Hey, next hour, stay tuned for the return of a program that generated over 50 Facebook likes on KPFT's page just a few minutes after we announced its return. Dr. Michio Kaku and Exploration. Today's program investigating the origin of the universe, and a second interview with a woman in science. And then it's, of course, Wide Open Spaces with Texas Music Award-winning DJ Rourke Smith. Out today. In for him, the ever-lovely Susan Darrow, 10 to 1 for that musical journey through the midday. And being Hump Day, Wednesday, well, hey, let's take the Heartbeat of Africa journey and keep that music flowing until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Absolutely. You know, for our complete program schedule, you can always visit us online at kpft.org. And please join us tomorrow on Open Journal when Jennifer Heflin talks about infrastructure efforts in Africa by faith communities.
Okay, well, for now, I'll leave you with a thought for the day, and this comes from Sister Chan Kong. She said, if we just worry about the big picture, we are powerless. So my secret is to start right away doing whatever little work I can do. I try to give joy to one person in the morning and to remove the suffering of one person in the afternoon. If you and your friends do not despise the small work, 1 million people will remove a lot of suffering. Take care of each other.
You have been listening to Open Journal, KPFT's experiment in community-inspired radio. Every weekday, KPFT hosts interviews, music, and culture to inform, enlighten, and illuminate your day. Our programming is made possible by people like you. KPFT depends on listener donations to stay on the air. Please make a tax-deductible contribution, day or night, for independent radio at kpft.org. We welcome ideas for topics and guests, and comments about today's program. Visit kpft.org to share your thoughts, or find us on Twitter at KPFT and on Facebook at KPFT Houston. Please stay tuned for more great programming next hour and the rest of the day. Find our complete program schedule and membership information at kpft.org. And thank you for listening to commercial-free, listener-sponsored 90.1.
This is BirdNote. What great spectacle would draw a steady stream of birders this time of year to a place well known for being hot and smelly? California's below sea level Salton Sea and the irrigated farmlands at its southern end are a mecca for tens of thousands of wintering birds. This inland sea formed when the Colorado River breached floodgates in 1905. Water flowed into the arid Imperial Valley, forming a lake 45 miles long. A century later, the lake has diminished in size and greatly increased in salt concentration, becoming too salty for most aquatic life. But a single introduced